They thought he was just another quiet black kid at a new school. Skinny, soft-spoken, easy to mess with. But when the fists flew, they didn't know he'd been training for this moment his entire life. Not to fight for pride, to stand for something bigger. The bell had already rung by the time Aiden James stepped through the double doors of Eastfield High, back straight, eyes low. His backpack hung heavy on one shoulder, the strap frayed from years of wear. He didn't look lost, just alone. The kind of alone that comes not from being new, but from learning early not to expect a welcome. Students buzzed around him, voices overlapping like static. Someone brushed past his arm without a word. Another kid gave him a once-over, and kept walking. Aiden didn't flinch. He knew how to be invisible. He'd been practicing for years. His schedule crinkled in his pocket as he navigated the halls. Room 108, then 214, then the gym. No map, just instinct and observation. He scanned the floor, the ceiling tiles, the way certain students gathered in quiet packs near lockers like they owned the air around them. Every school had them. Different faces. Same energy. When he passed a group of boys near the vending machines, one of them muttered something under his breath. Aiden caught it. He always did. But he didn't stop. He kept walking. Each step measured, calm. Like the rhythm of a jump rope. Steady, precise, controlled. He found his first class, slipped into a seat in the back without drawing attention. The teacher called roll, hesitated at his name. Aiden James. He raised his hand, one quick nod. No smile, no explanation. Just presence. Later, at lunch, he sat near the end of a long table, where no one else wanted to sit. He ate quietly, just a sandwich, an apple, and water. No phone, no earbuds. Just him, and the low hum of cafeteria noise. A basketball bounced in the gym just down the hall. He heard it like a heartbeat. He didn't speak much that day, didn't need to. But when he got home, he went straight to the garage, dropped his bag by the door, and peeled off his school clothes. The heavy bag swayed gently in the corner. He tightened his wraps, black cotton faded gray from use, and stepped forward. Jab, cross, hook, step back. Again, again. Each strike was clean, each breath controlled. No aggression, just rhythm. The garage smelled like old leather and engine oil, but to Aiden, it was sacred. The place where his uncle first taught him that discipline wasn't about who you could beat, but about who you could choose not to. Back at Eastfield, no one knew that. They just saw another quiet kid with dark skin and sharp eyes, small, reserved, out of place. But they didn't see his hands. Not yet. By the end of his first week, Aiden had learned the corners of the school worth avoiding. The hallway by the gym after third period. The vending machines near the science wing. The bench near the courtyard, where Ryan and his crew always sat like they owned it. It started small, always does. A nudge in the hallway, but felt more like a test. A sarcastic nice shoes, new kid, thrown loud enough for others to hear. A tray accidentally bumped in the lunch line, sending his apple skidding across the floor. He didn't react, not even when the chair beneath him was kicked as he sat down, sending his lunch clattering to the floor. He simply picked it up, one piece at a time, while the table behind him snickered. Ryan, all smug grin and varsity swagger, leaned back in his seat like he was watching a show. "Relax, man. Just messing with you," he said, voice light, eyes sharp. Aiden didn't answer, just met his gaze for half a second, long enough for Ryan to notice there was no fear behind it, only stillness. The others didn't know what to do with that. At Eastfield, silence was usually a sign of weakness. They'd never seen it used as armor. Teachers noticed, of course, they always did. But they had learned the art of looking just enough to seem aware, without getting involved. A raised eyebrow, a half-hearted, "Hey, knock it off," before turning back to their clipboard. Aiden stayed quiet, not because he was scared, but because his uncle had taught him that the strongest fighters weren't the ones who needed to prove anything. They were the ones who could wait. And Aiden had waited before. He remembered the first fight he ever watched, his uncle in the ring, blood on his lip, eyes calm as glass. He hadn't swung wildly, he hadn't barked back. He'd moved like a whisper, clean, patient, precise. That memory lived in Aiden's muscles now, in the way he clenched his jaw and measured his breath when the hallway whispers turned to laughs, in the way he adjusted his stance when a shoulder accidentally bumped him at his locker. in the way his fists curled instinctively under the table, but never lifted. He didn't come to Eastfield to fight. He came to finish the year, to stay out of trouble, to make his mother proud. But pride only stretches so far. And by Friday, something in the air had shifted. It wasn't just teasing anymore. And the quiet boy they thought was soft. He was counting the cracks in his patience, one by one. The locker room was nearly empty when Aiden walked in. Just the hiss of old pipes, and the faint echo of sneakers squeaking down the hallway. He moved to his locker, unzipped his bag, and pulled out a clean shirt. Behind him, footsteps, then a door slammed, hard. The click of the lock echoed too loud in the tiled silence. He didn't turn around right away, just listened. 3 voices, laughter, sharp, hollow, the kind that didn't mean amusement. It meant something else. Thought we'd help you loosen up, new kid. Aiden turned slowly. Ryan was flanked by 2 others, big shoulders, smirks, hands twitching like they didn't know what to do without a crowd.
The air shifted.
Not cold, just tight.
He didn't step forward, didn't retreat.
He backed up once, a half step, calm, controlled. His fingers brushed the cold steel of the locker behind him. Ryan cracked his knuckles like it was a joke.
You don't talk much, do you?
Aiden said nothing, just met his eyes. Still, measured. They mistook it for hesitation. Mistook him for the kind of boy who freezes when the world corners him. What they didn't know was that Aiden had trained for moments just like this. Not in school, but in a small garage with sweat on the floor, and lessons carved into muscle. One of the boys moved first, fast, but sloppy. A shove to the shoulder meant to provoke, to test. Aiden didn't flinch. That was strike 1. The second boy moved to his left, too wide, off balance. Strike 2. Ryan hung back, waiting for fear, waiting for Aiden to fold so he could deliver the punchline. But Aiden wasn't folding. He was watching, calculating, every angle, every breath, every inch of space around him. He didn't raise his fists. Not yet. Instead, he took one more step back, letting the locker door press against his spine. His heart wasn't racing. His body wasn't tense. He'd learned how to quiet the noise, control the breath, ground the feet.
Keep the shoulders loose.
Because his uncle hadn't just taught him how to hit.
He taught him when not to.
Carmen, one of the boys laughed. Gonna cry. Aiden blinked once. Strike 3. He exhaled slowly, dropped his chin just slightly, stance shifting, weight shifting, ready. And in that moment, it wasn't fear that filled the room. It was silence, heavy, dense, and something else, too. A feeling none of them could quite name, but Aiden could. It was the quiet before a storm, and it had just begun. The first shove slammed Aiden into the locker, hard enough to rattle the door behind him. A hollow clang echoed through the tiled room. His shoulder stung, but he didn't react. He didn't raise his hands, didn't blink. Ryan stepped in close, smirking like he'd already won. Come on, new kid. Hit back. Show us something. Aiden stayed still. Another push.
This one from the left.
His ribs knocked the cold steel. A faint grunt escaped his lips. But still, he didn't move. Then the third came. Rougher, more frustrated than the others. 2 hands to the chest. A full body shove meant to shake something loose, and something did shift. Not in panic. In posture. Aiden's heel slid back, anchoring him. His spine straightened, head rising, just enough to meet Ryan's eyes fully for the first time. The silence changed, sharper. The air around them thickened, like the room itself was waiting. Aiden exhaled once, low, slow, final. Ryan raised a fist. Too high, too wide. And this time, Aiden moved.
He didn't swing wildly.
Didn't shout.
He stepped in.
Not back, cutting the distance in half. His left shoulder rolled forward, absorbing the punch with ease, and in one clean motion, he ducked low and swept sideways. Ryan stumbled. The 2 others froze. Aiden's stance was solid now, balanced, chin tucked, fists raised not to strike yet, but to speak. And what they said was clear. Enough. You want to keep playing. Aiden's voice was quiet, steady, dead center. Ryan's face twisted.
He lunged again.
Messier this time, more noise than threat. Aiden pivoted. A half-circle step, just like the drills. His right fist moved like a whisper. One jab, sharp and fast, clipped Ryan's shoulder and threw him off balance. No power, just precision. Ryan hit the floor. The others stepped back. One of them muttered a curse under his breath, unsure now if this was a game. Aiden didn't press forward.
He didn't need to.
His fists were still raised, his breathing even, his eyes locked. He trained for self-control, not for spectators. Ryan scrambled up, his pride cracked wide open across the floor. He didn't swing again, didn't speak. No one did. The room held its breath, and Aiden, still calm, still focused, lowered his fists. Not because the threat was gone, but because the message had landed. And deep down, even the ones who'd come to mock him now understood.
He hadn't stayed quiet.
Because he was weak. He'd stayed quiet because he was waiting. And now, he was done waiting. They thought he'd flail, that he'd fight like someone desperate. Wild swings, sloppy anger, no control. But Aiden didn't move like that.
He moved like a rhythm.
Like muscle memory wrapped in silence. Ryan charged first, embarrassment still hot on his face.
He led with his shoulder,
trying to drive Aiden into the bench. But Aiden sidestepped cleanly, pivoted on the ball of his foot, and answered with a right hook. Not full force, just enough, just a whisper of power, across the jaw. Ryan staggered, blinking like he didn't understand what just happened. The second boy stepped in, fists clenched, breathing hard. Aiden didn't wait. He closed the space between them in 2 quick steps, ducked under a wild punch, and drove a tight body shot into the kid's side. Low, sharp, deliberate. The boy crumpled forward, with a breathless grunt, not broken, just folded. The third hesitated. Too long. Aiden didn't hit him. He just turned, stared. And that was enough. The kid backed up, hands raised, the false bravado draining from his face. Now it was quiet, just the hum of the overhead lights, and the distant thud of someone dropping a textbook in the hallway. The kind of quiet that made everything feel heavier. Aiden stood still in the center of it. Not panting, not posturing. His fists slowly lowered, his breath even, his eyes steady.
He hadn't shouted.
Hadn't cursed, hadn't chased them, because he wasn't there to win anything. He was there to end something. And now, it was over. Ryan leaned against the locker, chest heaving, sweat lining his hairline. He looked up at Aiden with something new in his eyes. Not fear, not respect, just recognition. He saw him now, really saw him. Aiden stepped back, shook his wrists out gently, and grabbed his shirt off the bench. He didn't gloat, didn't wait for applause. That wasn't the point. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and stepped into the hallway like nothing had happened. But something had. And by the time those 3 boys finally picked themselves up from the tile floor, it wasn't bruises they'd be thinking about. It was how wrong they'd been. About the new kid. About silence. About strength. Because the boy they thought would break was the one who never needed to. The office smelled like copy paper and cold coffee. Aiden sat in the chair closest to the wall, back straight, hands folded in his lap. Across from him, Ryan nursed a bruised ego and a red cheek, arms crossed like a shield. The other 2 sat slumped, still winded. No one spoke. Not at first. The vice principal tapped on a keyboard, eyes darting across the screen in front of her. The tension in the room was sharp enough to cut. Then came the excuses.
She started it.
Ryan muttered, nodding toward Aiden. He went crazy, one of the others added. Just snapped out of nowhere. Aiden said nothing. The principal walked in, suit neat, voice calm but clipped. We've reviewed the locker room footage, he said, setting a folder on the desk with a quiet thud. Twice. A flat silence. The vice principal clicked play. The screen showed everything. No audio, just grainy footage, and cold truth. Aiden changing. The boys circling. The shud. The second. The third. Then the shift. The clean pivot. The duck. The strike. The control. It played like a lesson. Aiden didn't flinch while it ran. He watched the screen the way a surgeon might watch a scan. Unmoved. Focused. When it ended, the room stayed silent for a moment longer. Then the principal leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion, but curiosity. Where'd you learn to fight like that? Aiden's voice came quiet, even. My uncle, he said, taught me after school, said I might need it. The principal nodded once. Slowly. Not to attack, he said aloud, more to himself than the room, to defend. Aiden just looked back at him. Steady. Ryan opened his mouth, but the principal held up a hand. Don't, he said firmly. The footage is clear. You picked the fight. He ended it. He turned to Aiden again. You didn't escalate. You didn't pursue. You waited. You protected yourself. Aiden said nothing. He didn't need to. The truth had already spoken for him. The silence stretched, but this time it wasn't suffocating. It was weighty in a different way, like something old had just cracked open. For once, the system didn't fold against him, didn't twist the narrative. The boy with the fists wasn't painted as the threat. He was seen. The principal exhaled. Go back to class, Aiden. We'll call your mother. But this isn't a suspension. Ryan blinked. Wait. What? You're lucky it stopped where it did, the principal said, voice sharp. Very lucky. Aiden stood, nodded once, and walked out without another glance. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smirk. But somewhere deep down, a wall that had always been braced for blame, finally leaned back. Even a little. By Monday the whispers had changed. Not the cruel kind that bite behind your back, but the kind that pause when you walk past. The kind that carry weight. Aiden could feel it in the hallways. The stares weren't mocking anymore. They were measured, curious, careful. Some students nodded as he passed, subtle gestures of something like respect. One kid, someone who had laughed a little too loudly the week before, muttered a quiet, "Hey man," and kept walking. Even Ryan didn't look at him the same. They crossed paths near the vending machines. No eye contact. No shoulder check, just a step to the side that hadn't been there before. But Aiden didn't need an apology. And he wasn't interested in the spotlight. He still took the back table at lunch, still walked with that same quiet step, still wore the same frayed strap backpack and scuffed sneakers. Nothing about him changed, except maybe the way people saw him now. They saw that he wasn't soft, but more importantly, they saw that he wasn't angry either. Just steady. Unmoved. That, more than anything, made them pause. After school, he went back to the garage like always. No crowd, no talk, just the sound of gloves tightening, the thud of leather against canvas, and his uncle's voice replaying in the back of his mind. You don't train to hurt people. You train to control the hurt they try to give you. Jab, cross, slip, reset. Every movement was deliberate, not about aggression. About discipline, because what no one at Eastfield quite understood, not even the ones who thought they knew, was that Aiden never fought just to protect himself. He fought for something quieter, deeper, for every kid who walked into a new school with their voice tucked behind their ribs, for the ones who blended into the back row, who kept their heads down not out of fear, but out of strategy. He wasn't just fighting back, he was fighting forward, for space, for dignity. For the right to take up room, and not be questioned. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, unwrapped his hands, and sat on the edge of the bench in the fading light. His knuckles were red, his shoulders sore, but his mind, clear. Tomorrow the whispers might die down, the nods might stop, some might forget. But Aiden wouldn't, because power isn't always loud. Sometimes, it walks in calm, moves in silence, and stays ready. Not to prove something to the world, but to protect the part of you the world keeps trying to break. If this story moved you, share it, because somewhere right now, there's a quiet kid walking into a new school, already being sized up, already underestimated, and they need to know they're not alone. Let this story remind us all, strength isn't loud, courage isn't always seen, and power, it sometimes walks in silence. Subscribe and follow to Black Roots for more stories that challenge the stereotypes, elevate untold voices, and remind us of the quiet power in all of us.